So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first to the session of Learning with Leverage. Jim, did you want to throw your slides back up?
Yes.
Also, I want to introduce our presentation today and our two speakers, Jim Sankson and Kelly Silvernail. We have information that, as we like to say, is hot off the press today for the new cyber incident response rule and how CUVM can help you with vendor management. My name again is Brooke Collins, and I am the manager of sales and services with CUVM. And Jim Sankson is the CEO of Pivot Group LLC. Jim is a former CPA with tons and tons, 20 plus years of experience in information security, financial services, and technology solutions. Jim is a subject matter expert in data privacy, information security, cybersecurity, and has an in-depth of understanding and many regulatory compliance laws and data breach notification laws information. Kelly Silvernail is our VP of CUVM. She has over 15 years of experience in financial services with an emphasis on operations, training, and development. She has participated in strategic planning, organizational development, change management process, and Kelly is responsible for the entire CUVM team with staff split between Florida and Colorado offices. Kelly has a bachelor's in finance and a master's in education, and we welcome and thank them both for taking their time today to update us. So with that, Mr. Jim, I'm going to hand that over to you. And yes, we are recording, and should anybody have any questions, you can raise your hand using the buttons below or send over a question via chat.
Thank you, Brooke. Good morning, everybody. What we're going to do today, we're going to carve this up into a couple sections. I'm going to talk about this new cybersecurity incident response rule and just to lay the groundwork of what to expect that's coming down the street here. Excuse me. Hey, Kelly, I have an emergency.
Go ahead.
I have an emergency I got to take.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I'll be right back.
Okay,
Sorry.
not a problem. All right, folks, we're going to pivot here a little bit. I will go ahead and start with a little bit of the vendor management piece while Jim is handling that. Let me see if I can get that pulled up. Brooke, can you get that? Do you have the capability to stop Jim's sharing his screen? Hey, Jim, can you stop sharing your screen or are you back?
I'm back.
Oh, well, that was
Good.
quick.
Yeah, that's what we do. We take care of emergencies quickly. But anyway, we're going to have a framework here today that we're going to talk about the new incident response rule. And we're going to talk about how it affects your current processes and policies and what to expect from an exam perspective, both from an NCUA perspective and a state level. And then we're going to turn it over to Kelly and talk about vendor management and one of the key roles in this particular area in this new ruling and how to become more in tune with how to be compliant with this new ruling as well. And then what we're going to do is at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A, which Brooke is tracking in the chat box. And so we'll answer those questions as well. Brooke, I believe you had mentioned, I just want to reiterate that these presentations will be available to you upon request. So all you'll have to do is either respond to Brooke, Kelly, or I, and we'll make sure you have a copy of these presentations today. So there is, back in July, NCUA sent out a notice that they're going to review the cyber incident notification rule. as of Monday, and that was a proposed ruling. So they've been waiting for feedback from all the associations, National Association of Federal Credit Unions themselves. And they've got all that feedback. We expect the hearing is on Thursday, and we're going to go through what we think it's going to be. And then how you need to prepare internally and what you need to be looking at. I know it sounds onerous, but the good thing, if you have been in this situation and are managing the oversight and the governance for your credit union and making sure you have your incident response program in place, it gives you a little more clarity on what to report and when to report, which in the past has been very, very vague. If you've ever had the opportunity to file a report, and we'll talk a little bit more how this plays into SARS and BSA as well, is that you didn't know what to report. Is this reportable? Is that not reportable? And so one of the good things about this rule is there provides clear examples of what they want to look at during this process. And therefore, you can gear your whole new updated incident response program and vendor management program to that particular area. And the other thing too, it gives you clear reporting guidelines as well. So even though it sounds a little onerous, and it is, because it's going to, if we all recall, the kind of like the makeshift reporting cycle was, if you notice something, you have 30 days to report to NCUA. Even though they're tightening up that reporting time, which is going to make sure we're a little bit more on our toes in this particular area, it does give us clear samples of what to look for and how to report. So the essence of this is that if in fact there is an incident, and we'll describe what an incident is, that rises to the level of reportability of a cyber incident, you will be required to report that no later than 72 hours after you reasonably believe the incident has occurred. That's the essence of this new reporting rule. The mechanics behind it, and what do you mean by a cyber incident, is what occurrence that is actually or imminently jeopardizing, without lawful authority, the integrity, confidentiality, or availability of information. And we'll get a little bit more into weeds on that as well. They take this rule and they address it in a three-prong approach. All right. And these are their words of the proposed ruling. Is during requires a federally insured credit union to report a cyber incident that has a substantial loss of confidentiality, integrity, or availability of member information, as it has an exposure of sensitive data, disruption of vital services, and a serious impact on the safety and resilience of your operational systems and processes. So that's the first prong of this particular ruling. The second prong is if it causes a disruption in your business operations. And again, what that means is not only from an internal system perspective, but also how it affects your member services and your member information systems. And again, the ruling would require that you report within 72 hours that when you have reasonably believed that has been experience of a cyber attack. And this, and we'll get into example, but in the example they cite in this particular paragraph, a denial of service, DDoS, that disrupts a member account, be reportable under this prong as well. Blocked phishing attempts, failed attempts to gain access to system, and unsuccessful malware attacks would not be reportable, meaning if in fact you had a threat or an attack, that you have your controls and technologies in place, then you don't have to do that under this particular rule. Okay, but only those that have been successful in their attempts of having some sort of discourse in your data privacy, security systems, and general operations. The third prong, and this is where they are really performing and stepping up their particular reporting, is they want to make sure that you notify the agency if in fact you have a third-party service provider that is storing and processing credit union information, sensitive information that is required for you to do your job, and is a requirement of this particular rule, that you hold your vendors, your third-party service accountable as well, to make sure that they are in line with your incident response policy. All right, and that they are on the same schedule and same notification process that you expect them to, because at the end of the day, it is our, meaning collectively, the credit union's responsibility to make sure we manage our members' data appropriately, whether it's on premise or hosted or with a third-party service. So at the end of the day, it's going to be the credit union's responsibility to report that, and whether it is something that has occurred internally, or it's something that our third-party vendor, who we trust for some of our main operations and services, but are also in custody of member information as well. And finally, what the last statement is here on the incident response reporting rule is, as you all know, part of NCUA Reg 748A and B is that you test your controls on a routine basis. Well, if you have, and what the statement means, if you have a third party that is testing your systems, okay, to see how good your controls are, then that is not reportable. So if you hire a vulnerability assessment firm, a penetration testing firm, to perform those tests on your network, and whether they're successful or unsuccessful, those are excluded from this reporting cycle. So those are ones you come in contact with, and you have giving permission to that third party to do these particular tests to see how good your controls are. And by the way, when I might add, when you do those things internally and you hire a third party to do your internal testing and penetration testing, it's a good chance also to see how well your incident response program is going, so to test that process as well. But those are not included in this reporting requirement of the new rule. This, if you have had an opportunity to, and I hope you haven't, but if you had the opportunity to issue a report of a particular incident, whether it be to NCUA or the state, it was kind of up for grabs on what to report. So I'm going to show you 8 items that they have itemized in this particular ruling that should be a part of your incident response plan now, and a part of your vendor management plan. Is that if a hacking incident that disables your operations, that's reportable. If a malware attack encrypts a core system or backup data, a ransom malware attack, that is reportable. If you receive a third-party notification, okay, to the credit union that they've experienced a breach of the credit union's employees or personal information or member information, that is reportable. And also, if there is a detected or unauthorized intrusion into a network information system, that is reportable as well. Number 5 on the list, a discovery or identification of zero-day malware on your network or information systems. If there has been an internal breach or data theft by an insider, So now we're getting into the human factor of this. Somehow you have a rogue employee that does some things that probably, even whether it's was intent or non-intent, those are reportable as well. A systems compromise resulting from card skimming is reportable. And last but sure not least, sensitive data exfiltrated outside of the credit union or your contracted third party in an unauthorized manner, such as through a flash drive or online storage account. Okay, those are reportable incidents as well. So those are the keys. And again, we'll provide this PowerPoint slide to you upon request. But those are the reportable things that from an internal perspective, you need to look at to make sure you have all those items covered within your incident response program and within your vendor management program and within your training program as well, and with your technology and controls managing and alerting these types of events. This is another important thing that comes out of this new ruling. They've actually itemized what the reporting requirements are. In the past, it's kind of like, what do you need to know? Well, tell us everything you know. I mean, during the last 12 months with NCOA and the states, we want to know everything. Okay, even if it's something that maybe not an issue, we want to know something, but there's very little guidance on not only what to report, but how to report as well. And these requirements are very important as you are updating your incident response program and your vendor management program, is the agency will require only certain basic information to the extent known by the credit union at the time of reporting within that 72 hours. The basic description of the reportable cyber incident, including what, where, or are reasonably believed to have been affected. Your estimated date range when this particular incident occurred. And where applicable, a description of the exploited vulnerabilities and techniques used to perpetrate the reportable cyber incident. Any identifying or contact information, if you have suspicion or good intelligence on this of who you think may have been responsible for this particular incident. And lastly, an overall summary of the impact of what it was to your credit union operations. Two of the additional things I want to mention here is, as in the past, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, this does not affect your SARS reporting. Your SARS reporting will still continue to occur as it has in the past. And what this does, this new cyber ruling enhances the reporting of the cybersecurity incident response. But the SARS reporting, this new ruling will not replace the SARS reporting. The SARS reporting are still in place, that you'll have to report those as well. And as well, your BSA reporting too. This BSA and SARS do not, I want to emphasize, do not go away with result of this new ruling. And so now you have a different level of reporting as it relates to cyber incident reporting. But both BSA and SARS serve a different purpose from the proposed notification requirement. And the big difference here between BSA and SARS and the new ruling is BSA and SARS do not require a reporting of every incident captured by definition of this current ruling. And in addition to that, this is another good note as you are updating your plan, incident response, and your vendor management plan, is make sure you have all the contact information for your regional NCOA director and your state director as well in your plan, so it's easily accessible. Any type of unauthorized accident or incident, they need to be notified as well on a regular basis. And we should all have those in our plans today. If you have any questions or issues of how you get those, or who your NCUA regional director is, or who you report to at the state level, you can reach out to me and we can get you that information as well. And finally, and this does not go away, as well as we know, living here, most of us are in the Southeast, but whether you're in the Southeast, the West Coast, the Midwest, or Northeast, if there is some type of catastrophic event, you are still required to report those. If the catastrophic event lasts more than 2 consecutive days, you are still required to report that as usual under the NCUA guidelines. So, call to action, in which I kind of alluded throughout this presentation, is as of today, and we got this information, make sure you go back and update your incident response policy with these new rules. It is very important, and I know some of this stuff is very intuitive, but now that they've got specifics regarding what to report and how to report, make sure you include that and with all your new contact information in your incident response policy. Obviously, review and update all your technology alerting, detection alerting technologies and controls to make sure that they will be in compliant with this new ruling, as well with the reporting requirements also. Also, now's the time to enhance your cybersecurity education program for your employees to make sure they clearly understand what this new ruling means to them as an employee and what their responsibilities are under this new ruling, and to make sure they're well versed in this, to make sure you stay in compliance with this new ruling. And last but certainly not least is a key component of this, in which the examiners are looking very closely now, is how are you managing your vendors on an ongoing basis, both from sign up and ongoing relationship perspective, to make sure they do the things you expect them to and the regulations expect them to, as far as safeguarding and managing and protecting not only your confidential information, but the member information as well. And they comply to this new ruling as well in order to meet your requirements with your reporting requirements, as you need to report both to the NCUA and state levels. So with that, in this presentation, we'll provide the link to the new ruling. And so you'll have that at your fingertips. And this is my contact information. And that will be a part of the PowerPoint when you request that. And then what we're going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to Kelly.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Great information, everybody, and we will get into definitely questions and everything here shortly. Jim and I work closely together regarding a lot of these new regulations and a lot of the programs regarding, the incident response programs, the vendor management programs, and that type of thing. So again, this is hot off the press and very pertinent to what we're going to follow up with as well. So a little bit about CUVM. We help credit unions and other entities and everything with vendor management programs, whether that is helping collect documentation to ensure that your vendors are doing what they would need to do and different things of that nature. But also what we want to talk about today is exam issues. We understand that you guys go through, the intensity and the exams and different things that pop up. There's different hot buttons in different regions. We hear these things every day as we're working with credit unions. We work with about 250 credit unions nationwide, and this continues to be an issue. So I want to address some of these things today, and then also work in with what Jim is talking about of how we can help and what you're going to need to do as well. So a couple things. Top NCUA IT examination findings, okay, and Thomas Locks from NCUA helped with some of these, but a couple of things are for 2022, you have inconsistent IT audits. So that lack of frequency that you're not doing these IT audits on a consistent basis, documenting, having that proper documentation, different things that come up. So please ensure, and this is going to be very, very pertinent with these new rulings that are coming down as well. And Jim, feel free to jump in here on anything that you may want to contribute to as well.
Okay.
Second thing, no multi-factor authentication. So unique passwords, that biometrics, the authentication token. I think we all know we have to authenticate with everything anymore. We all use our cell phones to get the codes, to get the authentication. So please, please, please make sure that you're looking at these components of your IT exams. Third is insufficient business continuity or incident response plans. We've all seen disaster recovery is crucial these days. We have disasters that hit the nationwide, whether it's hurricanes, snowstorms, different things that just pop up, mudslides in California, different things. So please make sure that your business continuity plans and your incident response plans, these should be reviewed on an annual basis at the minimum to ensure that you have all the data and everything in them that is pertinent and that you follow through with them, you know, and ensure that those are good.
Hey, Kelly, the other thing I would add to that
Yes.
is make sure you test your plans as well on a
Yes.
routine basis.
Great, 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 great suggestion, Jim. All right, so from the vendor management side, let's talk a little bit about what you need to be looking at. So your whole vendor management program should be reviewed. And when you talk about vendor management, it encompasses a lot. And when we talk about that, it talks from step one of when you're potentially even looking at a new vendor to the point where you have implemented the vendor and you are doing vendor review. That is your whole vendor management program. And that needs to be outlined and that needs to be in your policies and procedures. And we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between that. So please make sure that you're reviewing your vendor management program on an annual basis. As Jim talked about, number two, breaches with your vendors. They're going to need to be reported. Therefore, your contracts with these vendors that potentially have this crucial information that could be a potential with the cybersecurity piece, those need to be updated with those notification requirements and out clauses and reimbursements for losses. Okay, so make sure that you are planning over this next year to get addendums for these contracts with these critical vendors that is going to have verbiage and information regarding the reporting requirements that are going to be coming out. Okay, make sure that you do include those out clauses that if there's a certain amount or whatever your credit union's policy wants to be, or what you have specified in your response programs, that you have those built into your addendums in your contracts and that they're built into any new contracts going forward. All right. Third, risk assessments. One of the big things that examiners find is that you're not risk assessing your vendors, okay? That you need to have that document, it's maintained in-house, that you are assessing these vendors before you even begin that relationship with them. Okay, what is the criticality of that risk assessment for this vendor? How does it impact your financial institution from an operational standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, and what the impacts can be to your organization? You know, you may say, well, it's a core processor, it's, you know, it's critical, this and that, but having the same assessments for every vendor, they're looking for that consistency. They're looking for the fact that you're doing it with all of your vendors. So don't let that slide. One of the biggest things that we see is that you don't have the contract signed by both parties. It's a simple thing. You sign the contract, you send it over via whatever, and then you never get a copy back with their signature on it. Make sure all of your contracts have both execution signatures and dates. That is a simple thing that a lot of credit unions get dinged on. I know even sometimes people are like, well, I just came to this credit union and I don't know who had the contract where, or what filing cabinets it's in, or who has it in what office. Then request a copy from the vendor. It's okay to do that. I know with the credit unions we work with, we help get those contracts and ensure that they're signed and looked at. Okay. Summarization of your vendors, your terms, lead contacts at the credit union. One of the biggest things is when examiners come in and they say, well, who deals with this vendor or who's the contact? It's been handed off multiple times. Different departments may use the same vendor, okay, in different ways. So you need to ensure that you have a good summarization to be able to hand to an auditor or an examiner, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, a report out of a system, something that shows who your vendors are, what the terms are, and who they contact at the credit union. Okay, so if they have a question on it, if you have this information summarized for them, I'm going to tell you right now, examiners are going to be very thankful for that. And the questions go down to a minimal amount because of the fact that they know you have this information already at the fingertips. Okay. They're going to ask you what contract you've engaged in since your previous exam. Okay. That's another list that's helpful. Since the last exam, here's the vendors that we've engaged in. And then they'll take a look at those contracts and they're going to take a look at those risk assessments. They're going to go, okay, did you do the same thing when you engaged in these contracts? And what they may also ask you is, how did you compare and how did you choose those vendors? You want to ensure that you have a documented way of how you are choosing those vendors, not just because ABC Credit Union down the street is using it. They're looking for the documentation as to why you chose that vendor. Okay, and they want to see the consistency as to why you choose them. Are you following what your procedures and your policy states? Again, procedures are different than your policies. Procedures are the detailed components that you follow as a credit union. Your policy is the overstating arch of those procedures. So don't get so detailed in your policy that when the examiners ask for your policy and you're not following the policy because it's so detailed, that hits you down. Remember, your detailed piece needs to be in your procedures, which is your internal document for your credit union, not your policy. Okay, policy should be broader. All right, so those are the top about 11. Again, going back to the IT, you've got 3. And as Jim said, the 4th one, making sure that you're testing those response plans. All right. So you've got about top 11 biggest IT findings or exam findings for vendor management, which gives you a good tool. These are great tools to go into your exams. The other component is make sure everybody within the credit union knows when the tentative dates are for your exam. So people can put things on calendars, be prepared in their departments, be prepared for all of this. Now, a little bit about CUVM. What we help do is we have a web-based platform that's available 24/7, which is also great for disaster recovery, okay? We help credit unions have that risk assessment built in. We have dedicated analysts for each of the credit unions to help gather this due diligence information and to help you manage your vendor management program. We have folks that do reviews of a lot of this information that you should be collecting on an annual basis, on top of the fact that we collect it for critical vendors. And we help Jim and other third-party vendors ensure that we are collecting enough information. So with this new cybersecurity ruling that's coming down, we're already changing our documentation to ensure that we are asking questions of vendors regarding this information and what their procedures are going to be, and ensuring that they're testing everything and how these things are going to affect you as well. And let them know that things are going to be reported. We do monitor the market issues as well. And, we also help with the vendor management assistance. So there's a lot of different components to this, folks, that are very important for all of you. And we want to ensure that you're getting the tools and the resources that you need. And that being said, I'm going to turn this a little bit back over to Brooke and field any questions out there, because Jim and I have given you guys a lot of information, and I'm sure there's some key questions out there that we need to field. So again, feel free to use the chat window or unmute and throw up your questions for us.
So Jim, I'm going to go back to you then. So when can we expect the NCUA to start requiring credit unions to comply with the new incident reporting rule?
Great question. What we do, if the attendees aren't familiar with Pivot Group, we meet with the states and NCUA on a proactive basis, on a quarterly basis. So I just got notification this week. And like I said, everything you heard today, okay, should be approved by Thursday. All right. And what the examiners are saying is that as soon as that is approved, that's going to be a part of their examination cycle. So it's going to be effective immediately. So obviously, what happens here is it'll come down through the rank and file of the NCUA agency and the state agencies. But once that is approved, then they will, the examiners are all prepared to start including that into their exam preparation and execution. So immediately after approval on Thursday.
Alrighty. So the next question I have is, what are the major changes compared to what credit unions are doing today?
If you recollect the slide I showed, the major changes, and again, I'm talking to it from a practitioner perspective. Okay, I'm the information security officer. I'm the C-suite. I'm the compliance officer. I'm the employees. I'm the technology guys. The biggest thing is we got to step up our game on the alerting and the technology platforms to make sure that we know when an incident has occurred, and that can be like we said, an incident, a vulnerability, an attack, a malware, or even a human error or human incident, okay, that we need to make sure that we are aware of that internally. The second thing, as Kelly and I have both mentioned, is we need to brush up on our incident response program. That is so key. And Kelly made a great point. We probably, and we've seen it both ways when we do our IT audit, that you have an incident response plan, okay, and sometimes that includes the procedures, all right, which is fine. The examiners don't mind that. But sometimes it's better that if you have, when you have an incident response plan, you have a separate procedure document, okay, that you can update on a routine basis. So that updating your incident response procedures, training your employees are key. It's very key. Okay, so they know what to expect. Even without this reporting rule, there's so many statistics out there that the longer an incident, a malware, a vulnerability resides on your system, the more damage it can occur. And that's what one of the biggest things they want to do here, NCUA wants to do, is minimize that window. And if it is a overall impact or overall incident that they can share universally, not the specifics to the credit union, but just, hey, there's this malware out there, or there's this social engineering exercise. So they can put the alert out and issue these risk alerts. All right. So credit unions across the nation can be aware of these particular incidents. And then last but not least, of course, the vendor is so key. And with the vendor management is so key. The as we all know, as we've the last couple of years, especially as we've gone through the pandemic, we seem to be outsourcing more and more of our key capabilities and operations and systems, and then our amount of critical vendors have probably exploded, double or triple where it was pre-pandemic. And that's why vendor management is so important now, because it's become so prevalent in our day-to-day operation and so critical to this overall incident response.
So Kelly, this question's for you. Do you have to use a vendor management for a third party?
No, you do not have to use an outsourced vendor management third party. You can do it in-house. It can be challenging, and I know many credit unions are struggling with this based upon the economy and some of the staffing challenges that everybody is enduring. The same component to that is it's also challenging to ensure that you have the knowledge base that you need to manage your vendors effectively. I can tell you from our perspective, we do it on a global spectrum. We understand that credit unions all utilize some of the same similar vendors, so we can assist with that a little more effectively, which does allow folks to be freed up within your credit union to generate revenue and save on some operational expenses. But you can definitely do it in-house for sure. You just have to make sure, and as Jim mentioned, that you are testing everything and that you are executing everything that you say that you are doing, because that's where you're going to get dinged with examiners if you're not doing that.
How can CUVM assist with board meeting requirements?
So CUVM, we work with examiners just as closely as Jim does. So we also, our software and our capabilities generate reports and generate tools that you can use with your boards so that your boards are informed of who your vendors are, where the risk rating is. So it keeps them at a very high level, but it gives them the tools and the reporting that they need to see that and still meets your exam preparedness issues and meets your board issues of making sure that your board is aware and trained on your vendor management programs and your incident response programs.
Jim, do you have a timeline that you know of that we will be informed of when the final ruling has been approved?
Going back, as soon as this meeting is on Thursday is over, I'll get the notification through my channels within NCUA that it's been approved. All right. And one of the benefits of participating in these leverage with learning exercises is we will have your email address. So once we find out that it's been approved, we will automatically send it to the attendees that it's been approved and isolate and outline, making sure that everything is as we stated today. And so, like I said, as soon as we know, the attendees here will know as well. And then in addition to that, we will on the Leverage website, make sure we post this announcement as well with all the appropriate links.
Yeah, I was going to note that I would assume that the league and Leverage would both put it out on their Insight email newsletter that everybody would be getting, and we can definitely forward that.
Right.
Make sure that you're on the newsletter list. If you're not, let us have your information and we can make sure to add you. So I don't have any other questions.
Does anyone have any questions out there? Again, feel free to use the chat room to throw your question out there.
And do know that Kelly, you were interested in knowing if anybody had any trends or things that were coming up on regards to exams, if they were seeing anything, if anybody had any insight to that.
Yeah, that's always helpful. I know sometimes we see different trends via regions, as far as different hot buttons that are out there, but I guarantee you, Jim and I, we've had this discussion. This is going to be the hot button this year. So we're giving you the hot button. Get your pot holder out and be ready for it, because this is going to be the hot button this year and how you're handling it. And as Jim said, it's going to be effective immediately. So you're going to have to be ready to go.
This is Jim. I just want to hop in. I think Kelly's slide on what the NCUA examiner Thomas Lux shared with us is like I said, the business continuity, incident response, vendor management. But the other one is big thing is multi-factor. And so wherever you have access to sensitive information or sensitive systems, they want to know what your multi-factor authentication plan is for those particular areas. Especially recently, within the last 2 months, there's been this social engineering exercise using Office 365. And one of the requirements or one of the cures, possible cures, is if you have multi-factor enabled, it probably could have minimized some of the impact to our credit unions. So expect them to want to know what your multi-factor strategy and position is across your systems and networks.
Good tip.
I guess I don't have any questions in the chat.
Well, wonderful. Brooke, thank you for hosting us. We
No
appreciate
problem.
it.
Thank you. Sorry for the problems, the hiccups at the very beginning. Very informative, Mr. Jim. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Brooke.
Oh,
Thank you,
you're-
everybody, for attending.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a good day.